speak to Nadhim Zahawi, Business Minister, joins us now. Mr. Zahawi, good afternoon to you. So the wrong
Good
kind
afternoon.
the wrong kind of racist experience, it seems, for Priti Patel.
I think this letter is horrible and divisive. It attacks Priti for her heritage. Priti, who's been portrayed by The Guardian as a cow with a nose ring. This is horrible, and Keir Starmer needs to take a position on this letter. His front bench, it's not just backbench MPs as per your report, his front bench have signed the letter. Do they speak for him or not? Keir Starmer either condones this letter or doesn't. And he has to get a grip of his team, because otherwise he'll be seen to condone this. This is terrible. And I really do think Keir's big enough to come out and disassociate himself from his front bench and his colleagues. But sadly, it appears to be, a new leader, but same old Labour. I think this is really a sad day for the Labour Party.
Their contention seems to be that Priti Patel's response of her own experiences, notwithstanding, is not a catch-all experience for all forms of racism. And therefore, by citing that she knows full well what's going on because she's been there herself, spectacularly fails to understand what other racial groups are going through. That appears to be what they're saying. Is there anything in that at all, Nadhim Zahawi, that you could recognise in terms of the different experiences that different people have ethnically?
No, but the letter itself is attacking someone who has faced racism and has not in any way come out and said anything other than that Black lives do matter and that people have a right to be angry at what happened to George Floyd in America. By the way, the other thing the letter does, which I think is really awful, is it links US police brutality over George Floyd to UK police. I think we've seen scenes of our policemen and women being attacked in Hackney. The police have always policed in the UK by consent, and I'm proud of that. They've engaged, they've explained, they've encouraged, and then they've enforced. And I think this letter has to be condemned. This is an awful miscalculation by the Labour Party and Labour MPs and Labour frontbenchers. And I think Keir Starmer has to come out and take a position on it. Does he support this letter or doesn't he? And to attack Priti Patel in this way, I have to say, is a sad day for the Labour Party. Of course, we can't, as the Prime Minister said, can't hide from our past, and we seek to explain it. But there's no way the Home Secretary is going to condone the hijacking of the Black Lives Matter movement by a bunch of violent, anti-government people who want to use this really to just go out and damage monuments, damage buildings of all sorts, and damage our police force and the rule of law.
Is there? I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier, and I've often wondered when I look at the Labour benches, if you are somebody of the left, then you have certain stereotypical ideas of what people on the right might look like, or Conservatives might look like, and that doesn't include in your mind many people who aren't white. And so the idea that we have people like yourself as a minister, the Home Secretary, the Chancellor, and the list really does go on in the current government, who represent a very different look to a British cabinet and a very different feel to what politics looked like not so many moons ago. That is, they are struggling to countenance that, and it's probably slightly annoying that people like you and Priti Patel and others exist in the cabinet, because the subtext of what they say in that letter seems to me to be, well, you're not the real deal in terms of your ethnicity. You're almost being disloyal to it.
And that's what they've got to reflect on. They've got to look in the mirror and think to themselves, Kwasi Kwarteng, Kemi Badenoch, Priti Patel, Nadhim Zahawi, Sajid Javid, the names go on. We are black, we are white, we are brown, we are all part of this government and part of this country. And instead of bringing the country together and actually speaking with one voice with Priti Patel, doesn't matter what your politics are, and condemning the violence and condemning the hijacking of the Black Lives Matter. By the way, these anarchists, these thugs, want for this to become a violent protest. Why? Because
Sure.
then they can turn around to people in their community. So you see, we told you so. That's the government overreacts. They want to see the police overreacting, which they won't do. The police have been incredibly calm under pressure, and I commend them for that. And they will not allow any law breaking, and they will hold people to account when they do break the law. That video of those 2 police officers in Hackney being attacked whilst people were taking selfies is just abhorrent. And I just think Keir Starmer needs to be a leader, needs to come out and take a position on this, and either condemn this letter and have his front bench withdraw their names, their signatures, and have it withdrawn, or he's part of the same old Labour Party.
Just a final question. Sadiq Khan also waded into this too. He suggested that Priti Patel lacked, and I quote, emotional intelligence. What do you make of his comments?
Oh my God, I'm disappointed. For someone to say Priti Patel lacked emotional intelligence when she's been subjected to some of the most awful, racist, bile from the Guardian and other people online, and as she described in her earlier career and her earlier life, I think I'm lost for words. Honestly, I think the thing that is lacking emotional intelligence is Sadiq Khan's response to this.
Just a very final point. What do you think is in this? I mean, you'd have experienced this yourself, I would imagine. I mean, if you look at the electorate and divvy it up in different demographic groups and racial groups, and you would probably find that there is a larger component of non-white people who might be Labour and not Tory. I say that without qualification. It would be instinctively, I think that might be the case. So what is it about people like yourself that bugs those others? Why is it that the whole Uncle Tom accusation gets in? Words like coconut are thrown into the equation as well. Why is it that some people don't think you can be non-white and a conservative? What's behind that?
Well, I think, big question. I think partly is because this Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, which feels like Keir Starmer's now continuing down, sadly, the same road, is all about trying to demonize the Conservative Party as not being about aspiration, not being for people like me, of Kurdish or any other ethnicity. It's not for brown people or black people. And actually, we are proving them wrong. We are demonstrating that actually the people who really care, the people who want to give you that equality of opportunity, the levelling up that Boris talks about, because obviously talent is spread equally in the country, but opportunity isn't. And the Conservative Party is the party of opportunity. I think that doesn't sit comfortably with them. They don't like the idea that the Conservative Party is becoming more and more attractive to people of different colour, skin, of different religions who want to work hard, do the right thing, look after their families and do well in life. And I think it's much easier for the Labour Party to play this sort of culture war of, if you demonize your opponents are being uncaring, evil people, then you get to win people's votes. Actually, I think ethnic minority communities are beginning to see through that. I did a webinar yesterday with The Voice and BAME businesses. We had 900 businesses come on. These are people who are working incredibly hard, incredibly talented under challenging times because of COVID-19, and they want to do the right thing. And they can be, voting for anyone, but they want to talk to the minister and find out more, what support we're providing, whether it's the bounce back loans or anything else. And I think that's beginning to worry what I would call sort of the Labour Party. And unfortunately, it's that sort of Jeremy Corbyn doctrine, if I can call it that, of, let's demonize the right because, that's the way you keep the ethnic vote. That's not going to work. And Keir Starmer needs to come out today as soon as possible and take a position on this letter. This is really important. It's fundamental, I think, in many ways to our democracy.
Nadhim Zahawi, thank you. Business Minister with us here on Talk Radio. Fairly forthright stuff there, particularly on Keir Starmer.